A standing military force with an overgrown executive will not long be safe companions to liberty. James Madison. From the beginning of Trump's current term in office, I repeatedly said that while I agree with the effort to remove illegal aliens from the U.S., I had deep concerns over the way Donald Trump would go about it. What Trump is doing justifies my concerns. In the first place, most federal law enforcement agencies are unconstitutional, including the agencies created under the Department of Homeland Security and the FBI. The Constitution clearly charges states and local communities with the responsibility of domestic law enforcement, not the federal government. In the second place, the Posse Comitatus Act, which became law in 1878, absolutely prevents the use of federal troops from enforcing domestic laws. Specifically, the law was passed due to the abusive conduct of Union troops to police elections in the recently subjugated southern states. In the third place, the hypocrisy of both the left and the right is off the charts. And seeing what's currently happening under Donald Trump, MAGA, and evangelicals, I postulate that the political right has become 10 times the greater threat to liberty than the political left. Pick your poison, fascism or communism. They are equally evil. Donald Trump is a want-to-be dictator. Professor John Mearsheimer, U.S. Army veteran, West Point graduate, Air Force officer, distinguished service professor of political science at the University of Chicago, recently opined that Donald Trump views himself as a benign dictator. Indeed. And what Trump is doing in Minneapolis proves it. Plus, every dictator believes that his tyranny is benign, doesn't he? ICE is basically operating as President Trump's private army. They are the Trumpian version of Hitler's Gestapo. The violation of constitutional liberties by ICE in Minneapolis is both ubiquitous and treasonous. And now a second American citizen has been murdered by Trump's thuggish private army. And don't try for a minute to justify the killing of these two American citizens. There was nothing justified about either of them. The lengths that MAGA conservatives and Christian Zionists are going through to try and defend the federal stormtroopers demonstrates a duplicitous heart and constitutional ignorance. FBI Director Kash Patel, DHS, Secretary Kristi Noem, Border Patrol Chief Greg Bovino, White House Deputy Chief of Staff Stephen Miller, and President Trump, no stranger to anti-Second Amendment rhetoric, have vilified the lawfully armed peaceful protester Alex Pretty, as have so-called conservatives, and are exposing themselves to be downright idiotic when they say that Pretty, the most recent U.S. citizen murdered by ICE in Minneapolis, was an assassin, Miller, wanted to massacre law enforcement, Bovino, was brandishing a weapon and acted violently toward officers, Noem. None of that is true. Trump himself spouted, "I don't like that he had a gun, I don't like that he had 2 fully loaded magazines. That's a lot of bad stuff." Trump also said that protesters can't have guns. Wrong, Mr. Trump. In most states, including in Minnesota, it should be in every state, there is absolutely nothing illegal in peaceful protesters being armed. It's part and parcel with the Second Amendment. Mr. Pretty had a Minnesota concealed carry permit. Protesters carrying their own personal firearms dates back to America's inception. If President Trump was serious about our illegal alien problem, he wouldn't send stormtroopers to terrorize U.S. citizens in their streets, marketplaces, neighborhoods, and homes. He would tell the Republican Congress to turn off the financial spigot that entices illegals to come here, many escorted by Israelis, by supplying them with cash, cell phones, free medical care, free education, $200 pairs of tennis shoes, etc. If he was serious about it, he would send officers to arrest the millionaire and billionaire business owners that are hiring illegal aliens to supplant the jobs of American citizens. He would also incentivize state and local police agencies to arrest illegals and turn them over to the Border Patrol for extradition during their day-to-day policing. Illegals take the risk of coming here because the U.S. and state governments give them millions of reasons, aka dollars, to come here. Then the same politicians who authorize the use of taxpayer dollars to incentivize illegals coming here turn around and complain about them being here. What a scam. And the law-breaking greedy, while the American people, millionaires, get a free pass, while American citizens are terrorized by federal stormtroopers under the guise of immigration enforcement. If you care to look at the facts, here is an excellent video analysis, frame by frame, of the murder of Mr. Pretty. When you watch the videos of this killing, you'll see that Mr. Pretty, an intensive care unit nurse at a VA hospital with no criminal record, showed zero aggressive action, that he was simply attempting to assist two women who had been violently thrown to the ground by ICE agents, who then was mobbed by 7 ICE agents, who then shot pepper spray in his face and threw him to the ground. During the assault by ICE agents, one of them removed Pretty's firearm from its holster. Pretty never touched his gun, and then while Pretty was on his knees, 2 ICE agents shot somewhere between 9 and 15 bullets into his back. Mr. Pretty was executed mafia-style by agents of the federal government. And what do we hear from MAGA conservatives? Stalin-esque defense of the government thugs who murdered an American citizen for the crime of legally exercising his First and Second Amendment rights under our Constitution. Under Donald Trump, Republican conservatives are now anti-Second Amendment. This is so outlandishly bizarre that it is difficult to even digest. Can you imagine if something like this had happened during the COVID protests that took place during the Biden presidency? Remember the photographs of people protesting in the streets against the federal government's COVID policies? We saw hundreds of American citizens protesting in the streets, and many of them were carrying AR-15 semi-automatic rifles on their shoulders. What would conservatives have done if one of those men had been gang-mobbed by federal agents, disarmed, pepper-sprayed, and then shot in the back a dozen times while he was blinded and on his knees? You know the answer to that question. But because this murder happened while Trump was in the White House, the Second Amendment can go to Hades, and this poor dead American is labeled a terrorist because his politics were different from theirs. In a pathetic attempt to defend Donald Trump, MAGA Republicans are saying, to hell with the freedom of speech, the freedom to protest and redress the government, the freedom to keep and bear arms, the freedom to be secure in their persons, houses, papers, and effects against unreasonable searches and seizures, the freedom to disagree. I'm telling you, evangelicals and conservatives are following Trump into the darkest pit you can possibly imagine. Right here, I encourage readers to watch my message from last Sunday entitled, God is Not an American. This message speaks to the heart of how evangelicals are twisting what it means to be a Christian and what it means to be an American. The current ideology being promoted by evangelicals and Republican conservatives is perhaps the greatest danger America faces today. Please watch and share the message. Mark this down. Minneapolis is a training ground for Trump's salivation to bring martial law to America. Trump has repeatedly said he does not want the November midterm elections to take place because he knows the GOP is going to get smeared. Would Trump be audacious enough to try and shut down the November elections? The answer is crystal clear. If Trump thinks he can get by with it, he will absolutely do it. During his speech at Davos, Trump brazenly said, "Sometimes you need a dictator." No, Mr. Trump, we never need a dictator, and we will never accept a dictator. Well, at least most of us won't. It seems the more dictatorial Trump becomes, the more MAGA and evangelicals adore him. One could make the argument that Donald Trump is deliberately attempting to incite the American people in Minneapolis to violence as an excuse to use the Insurrection Act and implement martial law in our country. If the American people have the slightest desire to remain free, they must not remain silent, and they must stand up for our constitutional liberties against this tyrannical president. The American people need to make it known to every elected representative in their jurisdiction, federal, state, and local, that ICE must get off America's streets now.